All right, today we're going to discuss the fractal code of nature, energy, geometry, and the lost art of living architecture. And I'm suggesting that Fulcanelli's Mystery of the Cathedrals is suggesting that Gothic architecture encodes a forgotten science. One that uses stone, geometry, and symbolism to transmit knowledge about energy, transformation, and the structure of reality itself. And I think when his writings are viewed through the lens of fractal patterns, atmospheric electricity, and biological self-organization along with morphic fields, a larger picture emerges. The same principles shaping cathedrals also shape natures. The builders may not have been creating monuments to belief. They may have been replicating the energetic blueprint of the world, its flows, its branching energy pathways, and the hidden patterns of intelligence. And everywhere in nature, from the veins in a leaf, lightning mirrors tree branches, rivers mirror roots, our lungs mirror coral and ocean currents. It's like one universal blueprint is stamped into everything that lives or moves. And what I'm suggesting is the ancient builders may have known this and shaped architecture that reverse engineered or echoed the same geometry seen in creation, seen in Lichtenberg patterns, seen in magnetic fields, seen in toruses, seen in vortexes. We're going to tie in Schauberger, Rupert Sheldrake. And the question really is, were they honoring nature's beauty, right? Or were they using it to basically gather energy, balance forces potentially, and resonate with the living field of the earth? So the pyramids are built over aquifers, just like Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower. And unique layers of rock through piezoelectricity and stress on quartz generate electricity upward. Physioelectricity, it's also called. The gold capstone could have facilitated a conductive path for the transfer of negative ions to the ionosphere, and usable current was generated. Basically, you can harvest the telluric currents from below. You can also harvest the ether from above. And the way they have done this, and it's even hidden in the words, right, like cathedral, cathode rail, made of basalt and silica in some cases, basilicas. And the sun is an anode, or anu in the Sumerian lore, right? So a cathode is a type of electrode through which electrons move. Electrodes are an electrical conductor, usually a metal that is connected to something that is not a metal. A cathode type of electrode delivers electrons, a negative charge, and the anode collects the electrons, has the positive charge. So look at all these fractal antennas, right? According to ancient medieval science, aether, also spelled ether, is the quintessence, the prima materia, that fills the region of the universe above the terrestrial sphere. It was a primordial god of light, the god of the sky, which the ancient Greeks considered to be blue ether that represented heaven, St. Elmo's fire. We'll talk about that later. Aether's mists were able to fill the space between the transparent mists on the ground and the solid dome that made up the sky. And this is what Tesla was working with, right? And what we see through this pattern, this blueprint of life, the phi, Fibonacci, and the golden ratio, the golden ratio and the Fibonacci sequence define the rhythm of growth, right? And the Fibonacci sequence and the golden ratio are deeply connected because the ratio of consecutive Fibonacci numbers approaches the golden ratio, approximately 1.618, as the sequence progresses. The sequence starts with a 0 and 1, and each subsequent number is the sum of the two preceding ones. When you divide a Fibonacci number by the one before it, the result gets closer and closer to the golden ratio's value. And even Tool wrote a whole album or one of their songs, was it Lateralis? Basically using the Fibonacci sequence as the time, right? And whether we're talking about seashells, sunflowers, pine cones, they all unfold according to these hidden mathematics. This ratio isn't random. It's the most efficient way to pack, grow, and transmit energy through space. And spirals that are based on phi unfold infinitely. They are balanced, self-replicating, and harmonious. And what I'm thinking is that ancient cultures built temples, pyramids, and sculptures in these proportions, not for decoration, but likely for resonance. And the same proportion governs sound frequencies, right? And the way that the celestial spheres circle above us, trapped in electromagnetic orbit. And also light refraction, right? It's nature's constant ratio of creation, this spiral, this vortex, this Fibonacci sequence. And these things repeat their shape at every scale. It's infinite within the finite. So if you zoom in or out, the same geometry appears. Trees, lightning, blood vessels, river deltas, they all grow through this branching symmetry, similar to the Lichtenberg pattern or phi or the golden ratio. And it follows the path of least resistance, forming fractal patterns as it distributes its charge or flow. And life itself basically functions as this living circuit where, not only human life, but roots absorb, branches radiate, and they're always balancing input and output. And a lot of architecture seems to be reverse engineering nature, or even reverse engineering the human body, which works as a living circuit as well. When our feet are grounded, right, we can absorb energy, and we do radiate that energy. And the more branches, the greater the surface area for exchange, a perfect self-optimizing design. So don't neurons make new connections and generate new pathways and new branches, more surface area for the energy exchange? And when light passes through air, resin, or any organic matter, it creates this branching mark called the Lichtenberg figure. These marks look exactly like trees, veins, and neural pathways. It's showing how energy organizes matter. And this Lichtenberg pattern is the actual fingerprint of plasma discharge, electric discharge. It's nature's signature of energy movement through a medium. And it's the same geometry seen in storms, roots, and synapses, perhaps showing that life and lightning share a common source. Organized plasma flow or organized electrical discharge. Is plasma just a carrier for the electricity, right? And, the duality of it all, the above and below. A tree mirrors itself, the branches in the sky and the roots underground. One gathers sunlight and air, the other absorbs minerals and waters, completing this energy cycle between the sky and below. And ancient cultures revered the tree as a cosmic antenna, like this bridge between realms, drawing subtle forces from above in this cosmic egg, right, this torus, and from below. The same design exists in our human body, whether it's the lungs, intestines, lymphatic system, nervous system, blood vessels, both fractal systems feeding this life force, right? And the pattern is universal. It's always dual, this expansion and contraction, radiation and absorption, above and below. And this is what Walter Russell was talking about, right? And he described it as radiation and gravity, but gravity being like the contraction, the entropy, right? Expansion and contraction. And solids are compressed gases, and gases are divided solids. Multiplied matter will fall, divided matter will rise. Radii curve in the lenses of the curved equators. So what he's basically saying is that everything is governed by magnetic flow, and that positive electricity flows against the stream, negative electricity flows within the stream, and that's the contraction and expansion, the positive, the negative, the inhale, the exhale. And creation is but a swing of this cosmic pendulum from inertia through energy and back again to inertia, forever and ever. It's basically a series of opposing pulsations of action and reaction, integration and disintegration, what he calls gravitation and radiation, appearance and disappearance. And this is what, Tesla read Walter Russell's stuff and said that he was so ahead of his time that his work needed to be shelved for like 100 years because humanity just wasn't ready for this stuff, right? So all effects of motion are orderly and periodic. The cosmic pendulum unfailingly records and adjusts all periodicities. And what Walter Russell was also saying was that basically there are octaves of integrating light, like basically octaves within the other, these spirals. It looks like the Nautilus shell. And these 10 octaves constitute a complete cycle of the transfer of the universal constant of energy through in all of its dimensions in sequence. So basically, a way to think about this, and I may not get the verbiage exactly right, but all matter is just light slowed down, right? And at different speeds and frequencies, it becomes different things, okay? So if we tie this into old world architecture, right, the technology of using arches, right, electrical arches, old world architecture, cathedrals, basilica, basalt and silica, temples, stupas, and towers, torii, echo these same natural geometries. The tall spires, domes, and ornate topping, right, these lightning rods or whatever, are said to be decorative or for protection, yet their fractal repetition suggests function. Many even align with ley lines, magnetic fields, or celestial coordinates as if tuned in to the Earth's natural frequencies. The metal pinnacles and domes could act like antennas or capacitors, gathering atmospheric charge. Very, very, very similar to how ship masts glow with St. Elmo's fire. And again, St. Elmo's fire is just this phenomenon where in really high altitude towns, and especially at sea though, with these metal masts that are tall on ships would attract this blue glow. And it's basically ionizing the surrounding gas, pulling electricity out of the ether, and they would call it St. Elmo's fire. And again, whether we're talking about the sun being an anode and the cathode rails, the cathedrals being the cathodes, or, the building itself somehow functioning as both, right? And being tied, a lot of megaliths are tied into like the grid line or the ley lines or the magnetic field or the stars, right? Entire towns in the Southwest are built and connected in ways to reflect Orion, right? The Anasazi star cities. So could a lot of these megaliths be basically pointing out the energetic nodes of the Earth and its ley line and its magnetic fields? And so what if these sites, what if this blue plasma glow isn't a coincidence? It's basically evidence that the atmosphere itself carries energy drawn to conductive fractal points. What if these spires, right, were all designed to harvest or balance that atmospheric electricity, right? Basically, it's like a lost technology of living architecture, right? And, pilots recorded this phenomenon. It's a violet glow of ionized air around objects, usually during thunderstorms. So when the air is charged, metallic objects or other things that attract charges can attract this blue glow, and it's called St. Elmo's fire. And I've seen this around old temples, the fractal lightning rods on the temples in India. I've seen videos of it attracting this blue glow. And that's exactly what it is. It's St. Elmo's fire. It's plasma, right? And the depictions of it in antiquity and even modern day science will confirm what it is, right? It's plasma. And before it was dismissed, right, the ether was understood as a universal medium. Invisible but vital, basically the carrier of light, electricity, and consciousness, right? Tesla sought to tap into this, basically, ocean of energy, designing coils and towers that resonated with Earth's frequency and pulled it from the telluric currents below and from the ether above. His Wardenclyffe Tower functioned not through combustion or wires, but resonance, vibration tuned to natural harmonics. And ancient architecture may have been doing the same thing, right? Resonant chambers, domes, and spires as tuning forks for the etheric field. And, what is going on here? These Tesla coil lightsaber battles that they're showing us in modern times? Looks exactly like what is depicted in 16 or 1700s woodcuts that they say are fireworks displays, huh? They're just using light from the gas, and then they're gaslighting us about it. But, this fractal geometry, repeating endlessly, is the perfect shape for gathering the subtle energy. It basically allows it to vortex and to ionize, right? It attracts it. It's self-similarity allowing power to cascade through these scales or through these, octaves of vibration. And it isn't just in old buildings that they were harnessing and figuring out these stuff. There's this guy named Viktor Grebennikov who basically reverse engineered nature through looking at beetle wings and scarab wings and stuff and figuring out levitation. But all of these repeating patterns and geometries in nature and in architecture, the technology of electric arcs, are more than decoration, I think. They're a language of creation. The same fractals found in our neurons are found shaping river systems and galaxies. The shape that galaxies are presented to us with. But if you look at the stuff where it was called, SpaceX, where it was this double spiral, right? And why do cathedrals have this? That's the natural pattern, right? This circuitry enclosed in it, right? And I think that the ancients knew all about this, right? And that they share nature and architecture share a single code. And as to tie all this together, I think it has to do with Sheldrake, Schauberger, and the living field, right? Morphic resonance is nature's memory field. Sheldrake introduced the idea of morphic resonance, that every species, form, or behavior resonates with an invisible memory field. Each new instance of a form strengthens its morphic pattern, making it easier for it to appear again. The ether, the akasha, the electromagnetic net, right? Whether it's the shape of a shell or a thought in the human mind. And his theory fits seamlessly with fractals and sacred geometry, in my opinion. It's the universe as a self-learning organism reinforcing its own designs. And the repeating patterns we see might not just be mathematical, basically memory made visible. And the field itself could be what holds the blueprint, right, for all consciousness. And natural systems, or morphic units, at all levels of complexity, atoms, molecules, crystals, cells, tissues, organisms, and societies of organisms, are animated, organized, and coordinated by morphic fields, which contain an inherent memory. Natural systems inherit this collective memory from all previous things of their kind by a process called morphic resonance, with the result that patterns of development and behavior become increasingly habitual through repetition. There's a continuous spectrum of morphic fields, including morphogenetic fields, behavioral fields, mental fields, social and cultural fields. You could also call these thought forms or egregores or even demons, right? But is it tied in to the akasha itself, to the ether, to our magnetic field, to electromagnetism itself? How do electromagnetism and plasma work together to form the intelligent underpinning and the structure of our realm, which manifests itself in things like the phi ratio, pi, golden ratio, all this stuff, right? And I think that if we continue to look into nature's patterns like Victor Schauberger did, he observed that the spiral is nature's engine through implosion rather than explosion, and that all living movement follows spirals, vortices, and implosions, never straight lines. He believed the spiral was basically the way nature generates and regenerates energy, cooling, condensing, and vitalizing matter. Water moving in a vortex gains vitality and charge, while forced linear flow makes it stagnant and drains it. He made vortex machines that showed these strange effects: cooling without energy input, glowing plasma, and even levitation-like forces, right? Phenomena tied to implosive motion. So it's not anti-gravity, because gravity doesn't exist. Everything is relative density between the object and the medium it's in. But if we use implosion, we can basically use sound to levitate in a way through using nature's vortices, right? The spiral is the motion of the fractal. It draws, and again, if they follow the golden ratio and phi, they're infinite spirals. Spiral out, keep going. It draws energy, these heteromach, fractalized patterns. Everything's a holograph. The whole is contained within the smallest part. Right? These Lichtenberg, these spirals, it draws energy inward from the etheric field, compressing chaos into order is what it's doing. And that's the key, the form, the trinity of creation is form, motion, and memory, I would say. So form is like this fractal geometry, right? And motion would be the spiral vortex, and memory would be the morphic field. And together, they basically explain how energy, consciousness, and matter continually recreate the world. Sheldrake's morphic resonance provides the memory of design. Schauberger's vortex provides the movement of energy. And fractal geometry provides the structure to contain it. So perhaps that trinity is the true secret of ancient architecture. Not decoration, but participation in nature, participation in the living flow of creation, reverse engineering the most efficient way to do things that has been honed through an infinite amount of time of adaptation through, morphic fields. Like if you cut a planarian worm in half and stimulate it with certain electricity, it'll grow another head, like two heads. Without changing anything to its DNA, its offspring will do the same thing if you cut it in half, right? It's somehow there's this morphic resonance that gets through everything and is in the field, right? So the deeper we look into nature, the more we find intelligence woven into every single thing, right? Trees, rivers, lightning, cities, even our bodies. There's a living pattern, and they all speak the same geometric language. It's not random. It's resonance. It's repetition. It's remembrance. The fractal is the signature of life, the infinite within the finite, right? Energy flowing through symmetry. And to live in harmony with that is to rediscover what the ancients knew, that life and geometry are not separate, right? They're one living breath, endlessly unfolding. And even in slime molds, right? They put slime mold in a kind of thing to mimic Tokyo, and then they wanted to see if it could recreate the subway system. And basically, this slime mold recreated the subway system in Tokyo more efficiently, very similarly, but more efficiently than the actual subway system. And again, in nature, we see horns, we see antlers, we see antenna. It's to pick up on that electromagnetic energy, right? And whether it's, airplanes that are using bird, shapes, or the same biology and symmetry and aerodynamic shapes, like underwater is the same thing as in air, basically. Air is gas and gas is liquid. It's a fluid. It's not a liquid, but it's a fluid. So studying how things move through air and water would be very similar because they're both a fluid, right? The air is not empty. It has gas. It has mass, right? And things like fluid dynamics and air pressure govern a lot of this stuff. But there are ways, bees don't actually fly. They levitate because it's the same thing with beetles, I guess, that Viktor Grebenikov figured out. And it's just pretty well known that they reverse engineer humans, right, and nature in different architecture and technology, right? And again, I think that's funny how architecture literally encodes those words, right? Technology and arches, the electric arcs, the Ark of the Covenant. And electricity seems to just seek anything in any random fractal Lichtenberg path of least resistance kind of way, right? It's this almost seemingly chaotic discharge of seeking grounding in a seemingly chaotic way, but maximizing surface area, right? Kind of like the neurons make new connections in our brains and maximize the surface area of our brains. So that's like the electric portion of it, right? But then the magnetic portion of it is kind of organized, right? Where it forms fields, these magnetic fields and these vortices and these double toruses, right? So life just continues to be this union of opposite ends or polarized ends of the spectrum, right? I won't even say opposites because they're just polarized ends of the spectrum, and this impossible task to unite them, which can never be done, but kind of they love each other, and there's nothing you really need to do but find the harmony and find the balance in the middle, right? And again, to me, this looks like almost like one of those Mandelbrot sets where it's all the fractal stuff, but really it's lakes and rivers created by cataclysmic electrical discharge when this plasma event went off and sought ground and docked and created these Lichtenberg patterns in the earth, and then water flowed in those patterns, right? Doesn't it look just like the Mandelbrot set? So whether we're talking about Mandelbrot, whether we're talking about an interesting Mandela effect. Mandela is what the Buddhists create that are like fractal like this too. So whether we're talking etymology, whether we're talking Mandela effect, whether we're talking Lichtenberg effect, branching electricity, right? It's all these spirals, these vortices that Schauberger hipped us on. And these morphic fields, the way it all ties into etheric and akashic and ancestral memory almost, like our bodies are electromagnetic radios and we can tune into different frequencies, right? And everything, whether it's nature and everything that's been reverse engineered from nature, it's all fractal and holographic. The parts are holes contained within the parts. Love y'all. Peace.